We are back, and let's get right into it with today's next level matchups. We're going to begin with upgrades. Jeff, kick it off.
Kicking it off with Miles Sanders. It's been up and down for him this season, but we know, we saw last week, the highs have been extremely high. Top 3 finishes in 2 of his last 3 games. And it's really about this matchup against the Bears. They're the number 4 matchup for running backs, 4.8 yards per carry allowed to the position. They're one of just 5 teams allowing over a rushing score per game to running backs.
Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown hooked up for 2 touchdowns last week. Brown with the revenge game against his former squad. Time to get into our fantasy focus. We start with the Niners. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's out for the foreseeable future. It means it is Brock Purdy's season in San Fran. Purdy played pretty well last week, beating the Dolphins. How does this all play out?
The 49ers just can't catch a break with these injuries, right? And you're right. He stepped in relief duty. It was nice. A 4-year starter at Iowa State, so this kid has a lot of experience. Reminds me a little bit of Gardner Minshew in some ways with that moxie, but he's a dink and dunk type artist. And I'm really interested to see what happens this week when you get a full week of preparation, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against him. Now, as far as Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, yes, he is a downgrade from Jimmy Garoppolo, so each of these guys are going to slide back a little bit in rankings. I do expect the team to fully lean on Christian McCaffrey, so he's just fine. Now, Purdy, you're not going to use him in 1 quarterback leagues, but this week, by Mageddon, right? 6 teams on bye. You may have to use him in Superflex 2 quarterback leagues. He has some mobility, and he can actually service for fantasy purposes there.
Time to get into our fantasy matchup maker. We are going to swipe left. We're going to swipe right. We start with Kyren Williams.
This is a weird one, right? The Bizarro Rams, it just doesn't fit. They're wearing the same uniform. It's just not the same team. He's the best fantasy asset for this team right now, but I just can't bring myself to use any of them.
Okay.
So for right now, we'll see. Keep him on benches, but I am going to swipe left on him. Not going to use Kyren Williams this week.
He is a no-go for you. Dameon Pierce, earhole. Dameon Pierce is back. Which way are you swiping?
He is back and coming off of a bad week, right? And I know a lot of people are concerned about that. Can I really trust him? Well, the team overall is in a sad state of affairs with Kyle Allen under center, but the Browns are a great matchup, right? They're allowing over 5 yards per carry to opposing running backs. I'm going to continue using him. We're going to swipe right on him, keep him in there for now.
Yeah, rough couple of games for him. Next up is Chase Claypool, who now is the #1 wide receiver in Chicago.
Yeah, injury struck them. Darnell Mooney obviously out for the rest of the season. But the good news, Justin Fields will be back for this one. However, you look to the other side of the field and you see Jair Alexander looming. I don't like it. I don't like the volume that we've seen so far for Claypool, so we're going to swipe left on him as well.
All right, so we swipe left on Claypool. Traylon Burks. It is said so many different ways. Doesn't matter. For this purpose, are we going to swipe right or left?
Well, he's surging over his last 2 games. Obviously, the heads-up touchdown as well. Just following the play. Coaches love that sort of thing. We like his production for fantasy purposes. But again, look to the other side of the field. I don't know if the Eagles shadow. They didn't shadow last week, but you have Darius Slay, James Bradbury. Neither one of those are good matchups, so we're going to unfortunately have to swipe left on him as well.
Is it a dream matchup for Garrett Wilson, the youngster? Has been looking good.
And he was the talk of our bullpen last week. Everybody wanted to use him for fantasy football purposes, and we're glad we did. The Mike White effect is real. Had a massive game there last week. This week, great matchup for him. He runs out of the slot 46% of the time on the season. Chandon Sullivan allowing an 80% catch rate on the other side. We're getting back to swiping right here. Definitely right on Wilson.
Love that. All right, let's hit up a tight end. How about Hayden Hurst?
Yeah, the production is, I mean, it's not elite, but it's good, and that's all that really matters at tight end this season. He's number 7 among tight ends in targets, 60 on the season and 5.5 per game. Honestly, I don't think you're going to be able to do much better on waivers, so we're going to swipe right on him as well.
So Hayden Hurst. Now Kirk Cousins, we know he loves the change and he gets all swagged out. Where are you swiping?
Well, he's been a back-end quarterback one for much of the season. And it helps when you have Justin Jefferson out there. But the Jets on the other side, the matchup is absolutely brutal. They're the 3rd worst over the last 6 weeks. We know how good that defense is. So Kirk Cousins is going to stay on the bench, swiping left.
We're talking about matches. Trevor Lawrence and the luxurious hair.
The luxurious play as well in the 4th quarter last week. That was something special, making some big boy throws out there for the Jags. And really, when you look at what he's been doing over the last month, he's a top 10 fantasy quarterback. But that's all beside the point. He's facing the Lions this week. They're by far the #1 matchup for the position. Trevor Lawrence absolutely swiping right, getting him in lineups.